Hello there and welcome to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited. And today I wanted to talk about squashes, pumpkins, gourds, cucurbits as they're known, zucchinis in America or courgettes in the UK, and marrows. Anything in this plant family, there is a significant issue when you grow them in soils, especially soil that has been cultivated for horticultural use for many decades. And that is their predisposition to absorb pollutants, specifically certain types of pesticides. And this is an issue I was first brought aware by organic farmers. And organic farmers that are traditioned, normally when you transition to organic farming, the soil has to be left for a number of years and in a transition phase before the crops grown on it can be declared organic. And this has happened, and people can grow organic crops of pumpkins, things like this, but they get contaminated with pesticides that are in the soil that have been there for many decades and have not biodegraded. And there are a number of pesticides. There are forever chemicals that are pesticides, and there are other chemicals that are in the soil and normally don't affect crops and are not absorbed. But the cucurbits, the zucchinis, the squashes, pumpkins, they do absorb them and they accumulate them in their flesh. And so which ones are these an issue for? It's dioxin-like PCBs, organochlorine pesticides, dioxins, furans, some really nasty chemicals that most of them have been banned and are no longer registered. However, they remain in the soil, and a researcher in Japan has found out why and why this is. And so Inu Hideyuki of Kobe University said the pollutants don't easily break down and thus pose a health risk to people eating their fruits. Interestingly, other plants don't do this, and so he became, or I don't know if it's a he or she actually, so they became interested in what happens in this group, and they found that there is a special type of protein that binds to the pollutants, and it then moves in the xylem and accumulates in the flesh. Now, these chemicals are hydrophobic, so they wouldn't be absorbed in the water normally. They require this protein to bind to them and make them water soluble, and that's the big problem. So the team determined that the protein variant from highly accumulating plants are exported in the sap, whereas other variants are retained in the cells. So certain types of the protein, they go into the cells, other times they're accumulating, they move to the fruit. It's hoped that this can be used to breed squashes and pumpkins that don't do this, and so you could have healthier pumpkins as a result. It's a hidden danger in these plants. I don't know if it happens in pumpkin seeds. I would imagine pumpkin seeds might also contain it because they're quite oily, contain a lot of, pumpkin seeds. Interestingly, I once went to Turkey to visit a customer for seaweed extract. And he said, "We're going to the city today, Russell. We're going to the city." And I said, "Oh, right, great." We went along this motorway, went down to a small road, came to a village. A big, massive guy came and we picked him up, and he sat in the back. I was like, okay. Yeah. The customer, he then said, "Do you like guns, Russell?" And I said, "I've got an air rifle." And he opened this central component, and there was a massive pistol in there. And I was like, okay. We then went down a dusty road, and I was like, "Are we still going to the city?" And he said, "Yep, we're going to the city. We're nearly there." And like, "We're not going to the city, are we? I'm going to get shot and dumped in a ditch." And we get to this field, and we say, "Okay, we're here now. Get out." And there's all these women in a field with tarpaulins, big plastic sheeting down, and they're ripping apart pumpkins and putting the seeds on the tarpaulins and then throwing the pumpkin flesh away. And we just looked at people harvesting pumpkin seeds, and that was the trip. We didn't go to the city. I think he got confused between the English for city and countryside. I was absolutely pooing my pants. Anyway, it was interesting to see how pumpkin seeds are produced. I didn't realise that it's a completely different crop to pumpkins for pumpkin pie and pumpkin flesh and pumpkins for Halloween. They actually throw the flesh away when you grow pumpkin seeds. So that was really interesting and a funny story as well. But yeah, back to poisons in pumpkins. It's thought that they could also screen plants for these special types of proteins that can accumulate these hydrophobic pesticides and use them for phytoremediation to remove pollutants from the soil and actually clean up contaminated land. So it's something to consider. And why am I talking about it on Hydroponics Daily? Well, it's a massive advantage for hydroponic crops. If you can grow squashes and pumpkins in a hydroponic system away from the soil, then you don't need to worry about the pesticide accumulation because there should be no pesticides in your system. So a big win for hydroponics, and you could use that as a scare story saying contains no toxic forever chemical pesticides that are toxic, organochlorides and PCBs, dioxins, furans, nasty chemicals. So a massive win for hydroponically grown crops, maybe growing in coir, in a greenhouse, in a polytunnel, or indoors. And so, yeah, that's an interesting one. It used to be thought that the cucumbers, the squashes and the pumpkins absorbed it directly from sitting on the soil surface. And when they were resting on the soil surface, then that was what led to the pesticide accumulation. Certainly, an agronomist told me that back in 2016, which is absolute nonsense. It's not true. They absorb it through the roots, and these special proteins attach to the hydrophobic pesticides in the root exudates and in the roots and absorb them and accumulate it in the flesh. So have a think about where your pumpkins and squashes and courgettes, zucchinis, marrows are grown, and yeah, have a look into it. Might be a hidden danger. Okay, that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. If you found this interesting and entertaining, then please leave an Apple podcast review. If you're not an Apple, don't bother because it doesn't help us share the podcast with the wider horticultural community. But do click follow so you don't miss an episode, and check out utrema.co.uk for all your fertilizers, biopesticides and biostimulants. Completely unique technology that you won't find anywhere else. We don't sell it to other companies and rebrand it, so you'll know it's unique. And so, yeah, definitely worth checking it out. You might learn something. If you've got any questions about cultivating zucchinis or any type of crop, then always happy to answer any questions on DM, phone calls, emails. Just hit me up. It's now the perineum between Christmas and New Year, so everyone's got plenty of time on their hands to try new things with hydroponics. I hope you're trying something new, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.